Welcome to RVing in New England, the nation's only forum that puts you on stage with some of the biggest names in the RV industry. And now your hosts, John DePietro and Bob Zagami.
And there we are. Welcome to RVing in New England. It is Wednesday night. It is 7 o'clock. And what are you doing, DePietro?
And now here's your host, John DePietro and Bob Zagami. They goes boom, 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 boom. And I always go boom, like that, right at the end of the music.
Kind of like air guitar or air drum?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe air drums, thanks to my friend Mike Zimmerman.
I see.
Who's a real drummer. Zagami.
So it's Wednesday again. God, the weeks go by so quickly.
We need to celebrate.
Yes, we do.
And we're going to celebrate because me and you, in that order, have been named, both of our shows have been named to the top 25 podcasts in the world.
Right.
And it's about time we got that recognition.
Right.
I mean, it only took us 8 years.
Right. Both for the Camper Report Show and RVing in New England. And that is not the reason we invited Marc and Julie Bennett on the show tonight. It just happened to coincide with the blog post from last week.
Right. We are 8-year overnight successes.
No, we're in our 7th year, not our 8th year. You keep rushing to the 8th year. This is our 7th year.
I keep thinking it's 2024. So
we can say 7 decades of DePietro and Zagami. We could say that.
7 decades?
7 decades.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but anyway.
No, it's not 7 decades. 7 years. Look, 7 decades. We'd be on it for 7 years.
7 decades.
Boy.
But imagine what this communication world will be like in 7 decades. Podcasts and internet shows will be considered obsolete.
We won't be here. We'll be AI robots.
Exactly.
They'll run
that's the new thing, right?
They'll select the guests.
Look at. We always talk about topical things here, and you did something with an AI question a few months ago, or a month or so ago, and it was absolutely amazing.
It's crazy. You know what's really amazing for those that have the technology background. Maybe Walter will be joining us tonight. The big concern in Washington now is they want to pause AI development for 6 months before it gets out of hand. And I was listening to a tech podcast today, and the guy says they're a little bit late. They should have been pausing it about 10 years ago, figuring out what it's going to do, and 5 years ago, put the restrictions on it. The cat is out of the bag, and it's not going to go back in.
Well, that's because the people in Washington are afraid that they'll be discovered as people that are not really that intelligent anyway. Because look, most of the time when you see somebody on C-SPAN or the news, they're reading stuff that one of their 22-year-old staffers wrote anyway. These people don't have that intelligence, and
they can't
it's
write,
crazy.
Can't talk.
You know what? Speaking of intelligence and cool people, we have to say congratulations to Frank Palange and his wife, who won some big award in their field in the automotive repair.
It was, you know what it was? It was a succession award for putting in place a family or a management succession plan that, Frank's been doing a lot of traveling, probably getting close to his retirement age, and wants to turn that over. And his daughter was with him, and I assume she's going to be the person that will take over. And she's probably been running it for quite some time. He's been down here in Florida half the winter, goes up to Maine half the summer. So he's looking to lighten the load. Is he on tonight? You there, DePietro? All right, we lost DePietro, so we'll replace him with Marc and Julie Bennett.
2 for 1.
Frozen in time, which does happen.
Hey, at least he froze in a good image.
Yeah,
sometimes you get frozen like in a really crazy
He left us. He said, all right, if the Bennetts are coming on, I'm out of here. It was a nice greeting. Well, welcome back, guys. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Bob. Always.
Yeah, hey, that's my Florida background. I'm going to Maine next month. I'll go back to Maine, but
yeah, it'll be getting hot there in Florida right now.
94 degrees today. 94. Beaches were flooded, and then people are all over the place, and it's broken a record every day this week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and today it broke the highest temperature record in Ave Maria, which is just in the northeast corner of the Naples area. So that whole southwest Florida is just going crazy with high temperatures.
And we were out walking today in snow flurries in Colorado.
But now you're in Colorado. Yeah, explain what you're doing. You're off the road, but you've still got RVs. Bring people up to date on what you've been doing since the last time we had you on.
Oh, here he is. Hi, John.
Did we all go off or just me?
Just you.
Yeah.
You froze, and then you froze, and then
you froze doing this.
You were like a mannequin, John.
I thought it was Bob. Oh, well.
We missed you, John, but I'm glad to have you back. But
yeah,
Bob
you
was just asking
too much. You just took over and just continued like I wasn't even there.
Right.
Right. Like I wasn't even missing.
Well, I asked him for an update before you rudely interrupted him.
Did you ask?
So the update from us is, we full-time for over 6 years, but the last couple of years we've been doing some part-time travel with a home base. And so we go out with our RV for winter season and then also some travel through the summer. The previous winter we were out for 102 days, 3.5 months. This winter we went away for a little over 2 months, about 9 weeks.
And last year we did east. We went to Florida all the way down to the Keys and then came home via California to Colorado because it's kind of on the way.
Yeah.
We actually stopped to visit some friends. But then this year we did spend the winter.
We did a shorter trip this year, just down into Southwest into Southern California. But that's what we love doing. Still getting out in RVs and doing some different RV travels. And this summer we're also planning on borrowing some friends' RVs to mix it up even more. Getting out some. So we just love mixing up and love the RV lifestyle.
But you're still promoting because I see that you just happen to have your books placed on the bookshelf behind you within range of the camera.
I had so much trouble figuring out what art to hang on the wall.
What a coincidence.
I was like, what art are we going to hang on the wall? It was going to do a mural.
Just amazing.
You like that and like that?
Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, if we have a bookshelf, we can just put the books there. We can change the displays whenever we want. And it just makes it easy. So it was really just about making it easy and not.
Hey,
see, when you guys write your next book, maybe we'll find what room for it on the shelf.
I sent John our address. I'm waiting for your book, John. You keep talking about
You know what? You're right, because last time we talked, I said I was going to send it to you.
And I said my address and you sent us a book.
But hold on.
We lost him into the fire. He completely.
He walked right through the campfire. Hope you didn't get burned, John.
You don't have to be perfect to be great. That's very true. In fact, I think it's your shortcomings that make you interesting and give you more depth of life experience.
I heard a coach say something over the weekend that you learn from losing. You don't learn from winning because when you're winning, everybody is saying, "Oh, you're great," and you don't look back and say, "How can I improve?" And I don't know. I think they were talking about some of the teams that made the Final Four last year that didn't even make the tournament this year, something along those lines. But hey, let me ask you guys a question. Have you been to an RV park yet without your RV and stayed in any of their cabins or glamping tents? Because I did that last month down in
remember that.
And
we've not, but we want to. We've actually been talking about that a lot because.
Well, and whether it's a cabin or a glamping tent, or a lot of RVs actually have really cool restored RVs too, like some or Spartans or Trojans, like some of those older,
And a lot of people are doing that now because a lot of people are slowing their travels down. We've been RVing for 9 years now, and what we realized last year when we went to Florida, we were on the move every 3 days on average. On average, our longest stay in one place was 2 weeks. But this trip, this winter we're like, oh, well, let's slow it down a bit. And our average was we stayed in one place for like 4 weeks.
Our average is more like once a week.
But we're on average with all the shorter stays, average to be 1 week. But we are definitely leaning toward slowing the travel pace. So I think what you talked about, John, that experience staying in a cabin or staying in an on-site RV or a park model or something, I think a lot more people are liking the idea of doing that. We are, because if you're going to stay in one place for a while, RVs are designed to move, especially motorhomes. To keep them sitting there for long periods of time is actually not as good for them.
Have you seen any of the auto camp facilities?
Not in person, but they look really cool. Are they watching the show? Would they like to invite us to come and stay?
Especially made Airstreams.
Yeah,
the one
beautiful.
Down on Cape Cod is getting $350 a night to stay in the Airstream, and they're sold out. Sold out.
Now, that includes the camper and the campsite, right?
Right. You rent the Airstream on the site. It's got a nice big deck on it and what have you. And they've made some internal changes, so it's more livable, I guess. I haven't seen it. My daughter.
I've been to it. I've been to it.
Yeah.
And you can't drive up to them. You drive to a parking lot, and then you walk up. You walk up to them through a path. So it's not like you're pulling up into a campsite. So it's kind of like little mini condos. And it's really cool. And like Bob said, interestingly, it was a campground that wasn't making it, that they bought it and tore it down. I mean, they took like 2-3 years to turn that over.
Yeah.
And the day that we were there was like 2 days before they were opening, and it was just like a hotel opening. They're bringing all the trees and the fake grass and all that. What do you call it? The turf.
AstroTurf. Yeah.
To the place, but it's really nice. But the one that we stayed in, it's 399 square feet, and it had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a front porch with a gas stove. So in February, you're sitting outside watching the news of people back at home that were freezing.
That was the park model you stayed in.
The park models.
Carolina.
Right.
What was that nightly rate on that one, John, for the park model?
That was, I think, about $320 a night.
And
that was off season.
Yeah. And where was that? In Massachusetts?
That was in Myrtle Beach. It's called Carolina Pines.
But then you're getting into hotel and Airbnb price point territory. Right. So what you're paying for,
well, see, here's
the experience of being in a campground environment.
If you went there with your kids, okay, and Bob says this all the time, you're positioned right near the entertainment center that has a giant water park. It has a giant pool. It has a bowling alley. It has game rooms. It has, at night, some of those rooms turn into nightclubs where they have live entertainment, a lazy river. So you're not paying for the amenities.
It's like going to Disney without Mickey Mouse.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is, and they have like 3 or 4 restaurants there. You don't have to leave if you don't want to.
Well, it's like being on a cruise without having to sail anywhere. You got everything there, and it's safe. Like if you're going with kids, it's nice for the parents to know that they're safe. They've got things to do. Yeah. You can't really do that in a hotel. Having kids, they don't have that kind of amenities, but also they're just going to be bothering up other guests. I remember kids when we stayed at a hotel for my dad's work travels. We'd be running up and down the lobby and up and down the elevators. It was so much fun.
The buttons on the elevators.
Hey, let me just check and see who we got here tonight.
Oh yeah, we got a good crew tonight.
Bernie Culleton.
Hey, Bernie.
Campers in RV. He's got the big motorhome sale going on, right, Bernie? From now till the end of the week, a national motorhome sale up to 40%.
Gentlemen, what about me?
Dante, I think you're back in Maine, if I remember correctly. Frank is here, and I know he left Florida, so I'm going to guess he's probably back in Massachusetts. Jim Roy from Silver Moose. Jim was my guest this morning when I taped my camper report show, so we're going to introduce Jim to the entire country. So Jim, you're following Marc and Julie, who were my guests last week on the camper report show. So you got a tough act to follow. But Jim Jim did really well. Not sure what our buddy is saying. Oh,
No.
That's Jim.
No. Congratulations on the podcast, on winning the podcast.
Oh, winning the podcast. Okay.
7 decades.
Yeah, that's where Zagami was saying 7
Well,
decades.
Saul thought that. How could I say 7 decades on 7 years?
Yeah. I'm not even 50 years old.
Mr. Hawes made it on time from Rockport, Texas. I saw that you checked in somewhere there. 7 decades. Sorry, Bob. Yeah, I know. Everybody picked up on that. Hello, Estelle, up in New Hampshire. I don't think she's traveling. Jack Daniels, multiples, a lot of things by 10. Multiple. Very good, John.
And he's saying that all he can say.
Huh?
He's saying all he can say on a family show.
Good. Jerry Plant from Cape Cod. Wow, he's late tonight. Oh, man, Jerry, you're like number 8 or 9 coming in tonight.
And that was 10 minutes ago, Bob.
Right. And I was right. It's Frank's daughter who will be succeeding him. Yes. And Bernie says hello to Marc and Julie. And Maria is on tonight. And Frank is back in Massachusetts. And Bill Sell says 7 decades is a great age, Jack. You know, that makes more sense. Maybe I was looking at the wrong bottle, Bill. We do that. So what
Worry about John leaning back too far and falling into that fire.
Yeah, don't get burned. Don't get burned on the fire.
We had a specific topic that we're going to talk about tonight, which we haven't even broached yet.
Well, yeah, we want, there was one thing that caught my interest. They had, Marc and Julie had put out a couple of blogs. A recent one was on California. And let me see. You would put
Welcome
out
to the Hotel California.
25 campgrounds of 1,000 Trails, California. And then last year they did the 40 plus campgrounds of 1,000 Trails in Florida. So Julie or Marc, assume that somebody on here has never heard of 1,000. And this is not a commercial for 1,000 Trails. I put that in my thing this morning. 1,000 Trails doesn't even know we're doing the show. Unless they read the introduction, we didn't communicate with them at all. I wanted Marc and Julie to tell us from an RVer standpoint what it is and why they enjoyed it, especially when they were full timing. So Julie or Marc, stage is all yours.
Well, for everyone listening, if you've not heard of it, 1,000 Trails is a camping network. So network of campgrounds around North America. They're all in the United States except for one, which is in BC, Canada. And it's a membership program where you buy a membership, which gives you access to these campgrounds. And you, depending on which level of membership you buy, depends on how many campgrounds you get access to. And when you are a member, you don't pay for the nightly fee at most of those campgrounds. There are a small handful of premium parks. So there's like a $20 a night fee, but otherwise it's once you buy your camping membership and then an annual dues thereafter, then that's all you'll pay. So
which makes it very affordable, especially if you're full-time. The more you travel and the more you stay in those parks, of course, the lower your average nightly fee becomes, because if you have a set price for the membership and then you stay more and more and more, it gets more and more affordable.
Right. So that's Bob was saying, we full-timed for over 6 years. And so we actually bought our camping membership before we even bought our RV, because we wanted to be able to make our advanced reservations for the busy summertime and have those locked in before we actually hit the road. And that was a big part when we decided to go full-time RVing back in 2013 and we hit the road in 2014. What we did was sat down and did a budget. What is this going to cost us? And campgrounds and fuel are two of the biggest expenses, of course, after the cost of the RV itself. So we spent a lot of time researching that, and it's worked out really well for us. I think we've been members now for 9 years. When we joined in April. Actually, this month is going to be our April 2014. We bought our first. It was called a Zone Camping Pass, and that's what I call it the gateway drug, because it's like this entry level pass. And at the time, I think we paid under $500 for ours. Now you can get them
$670 full price, but they're
Is
often
there-
on sale.
Full price.
Yeah.
Don't pay the full price.
Yeah.
Um,
That
we-
orange article there has all the pricing.
We've
information.
written a lot about this since I think we didn't start writing about it till 2015.
Now these
We
are right.
realized-
These are right from your website. So you actually
Correct. You can go to rvlove.com/TT, and all of those educational articles about Thousand Trails will pop up. And you definitely want to pour yourself a Jack Daniels or make a tea or a coffee or a big large margarita or something to sit and read it, because they're a big long read, but they're very informative and they'll help demystify it and make sense of it.
Because it can be complicated at first.
Yes.
And there are several different types of these programs that exist in the country.
Yeah.
And all of them are promoted very nicely. But there are certain things that you don't know about when you're coming in. Like, with the timeshare business, when it first came out, it was promoted that you can go anywhere you want. But then more and more extra fees are added on. Have you found that in your 9 years that the rules have changed much? Or are you still able to enjoy the benefits that you thought you would back 9 years ago when you got involved for the first time?
Actually, we've got more benefits.
The annual dues have gone up a bit, and the actual price of the memberships have gone up. But I think that as far as enjoying the benefits we would have expected, that's actually gotten better, not worse, because there's been additional parks that have been added to the program. And there's also,
well, when we started, and I don't want to confuse people, but when we started like 9 years ago, you would pay $3 nightly fee. So if we went to a campground for 7 nights, we'd pay $21 nightly fee. They got rid of that. I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know why.
That was after you paid your membership, though.
Yeah. You don't do that anymore.
Own package
Yeah. And like we were saying before, the zone camping pass is the entry level, and the country's divided into 5 zones, sort of northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and then the mid zone. And there's a map in the articles on our website where you can see where they are. And you'll see the vast majority of parks are in the more popular, desirable destinations for RVers. So on the coastal areas, there's a lot in Florida, a lot in California, because that's where a lot of RVers want to go and travel. Recently, they're buying up other campgrounds and campground networks. They're owned by a big company called Equity Lifestyle Properties, ELS. And so it's basically a real estate investment company. That's what it is. And they buy campground properties as assets.
So wait, slow down. Did you say Thousand Trails bought ELS?
No. ELS owns that. No, Thousand Trails is a brand, right, of the camping network, and Encore RV Park. Some people might have heard of Encore. ELS is the parent company, and it's publicly listed company. You can look it up on the stock exchange. We don't own any shares in it. We maybe should have bought some, but we don't.
But are you saying ELS owns Thousand Trails?
Yes, Thousand Trails and Encore. They own it all.
Oh, okay.
And they own some other properties too. And so they're adding more on. So was another campgrounds. Well, we live here in Colorado, and a lot of people have said, well, there aren't any campgrounds in Colorado. Well, now there is one called Blue Mesa, and they bought them. And so so to your answer to your question, we actually believe we have more benefits now than we did when we started, because A, they got rid of that $3 nightly fee, and then B, they added something called the Trails Collection. And if anyone's starting to get confused already, now you'll understand why we wrote so many articles to help make sense of it. But it's a network of over 100 campgrounds, RV parks, Encore RV parks.
Okay, so these parks don't say Thousand Trails on them. These are independent parks, or are they all?
They're owned by Equity Lifestyle, and they're an extension. So they created something, I think it was maybe in 2017, called the Trails Collection. So what they did is they took a selection of the Encore RV parks and created a Trails Collection of parks, which there are about 80,000 Trails campgrounds around the country. And there's about 110-ish, give or take, because they changed the parks in the collection slightly here and there. But we get roughly 200 campgrounds, RV parks. RV resorts, they like to call them, and we like to say that term resort should be not taken fully. There's resorts and there's resorts, but do your homework on where you stay. But
is a member of your fan club.
Hey, Charles. We met Charles and his lovely wife, Abby, at a brewery in Arizona in 2017 when our Tiffin broke down on the side of the road, and he bought us dinner. Didn't you, Charles?
Yeah, Charles and Abby have actually mentioned to us a few times that their 1,000 Trails membership is really what makes the full-time RV lifestyle affordable for them.
Affordable.
For a lot of people, for us too. And we don't stay in it all the time. Charles and Abby stay in the 1,000 Trails system a lot. They make amazing. Here's the thing. It's like anything, right?
Yeah.
You need to make it work for you. And these guys have spent, I don't know, they love Oregon. They love the Oregon coast. And they have a motorhome that they've been living in full time for about, I think they're in their 6th year. Is that right, Charles? And they bounce between the 1,000 Trails Oregon campgrounds. They've even spent the last couple of winters in Oregon. They love it that much. So they're not, they haven't been coming down to the warmer states because they love it.
If you spend over 300 days a year, all of a sudden your campground nightly fees drop
Next to
into
nothing.
single digits.
Uncle Bernie's got a comment. Whoop, that's
Simon is.
Oh, that's that one. Do you know Simon?
And these guys in Florida, we share the same publisher. They write amazing books. If you're a Disney fan, they've got the best books on Walt Disney World Books. Look them up, Vanessa.
She was going to call herself Simon Schuster, but that was already taken.
Simon and Susan. Yeah.
Here's Uncle Bernie's comment. We give away a full year trial pass to 1,000 Trails. People usually ask,
are they nice
campgrounds?
Some are better than others. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, that's why we did those posts, like the 25 campgrounds in California, the 40 in Florida, because like anything, you need to do your research, and everyone's got different ideas of what's nice and what's not. Some
parks we love, some we wouldn't go back to.
This one here, do you see the one with the orange Jeep and the motorhome and the palm trees in the background in the top left? So that was our campsite at 1,000 Trails, Palm Springs, which is one of our favorite campgrounds. And we've spent, over the last 9 years, we've probably spent 5 months total over the years there. We like it. We like the Palm Springs area. And we were on a paved site here.
But that's also really sandy, though.
It's very sandy campground. We saw a mule in there. It got stuck, and they had to get a wrecker, actually tow it out of the campsite because it was so deep, the sand in their site. But we were on a paved site there. There's a handful of paved sites. We were first come, first served. We don't get any special favors, in case anyone's wondering. We're just driving around looking for a campsite like everybody else. We go on and book online or call like everybody else. We don't get any special favors. We are members, paying members, just like everyone else. So there are some campgrounds that we love that we go back to, and there are others that we've been to once and we're like, and wouldn't bother going back there again. But I tell you,
is there, Julie, when you say that, is there a mechanism, or do they have a Facebook page where people swap and can give their opinions to other? I mean, you could do it on other social media sites, but
there are some campground, there are some Facebook groups out there dedicated to it. I don't like to spend a lot of time in Facebook groups because there's a lot of people just like to go on and complain, and you'll definitely find that out there. Anyone, if you do your homework, we'll recommend that with anything related to RV life, but especially before you go and buy a camping membership. But you've got to, in everything in life, you've got to learn to balance other people's negative comments against, well, what's important to you. So people will say, well, are they nice campgrounds? Like I said, there is some we love and we go back to. We stayed at the Florida Keys last year at Sunshine Key RV Resort. They charge $300 a night, retail rates, a night to stay at those campsites. We paid $20 a night plus tax. So it cost us $315 for 2 weeks. That's the equivalent of one night.
On your standard, so like we said, some we wouldn't go back to. Some, are definitely below an average. But when you have a normal campground fees are $40 and $60 a night, and then you can stay there for no nightly fee. We lower our bar of our expectation, and it helps increase our satisfaction level, right? So,
right.
but some are really, really fantastic. Some
lower the bar.
Some are well worth $60 or $80 a night, and compared to on the regular retail prices. But
And it's really just try it out for yourself. If you ask
Read a lot of reviews.
Charles Airwood, they love all those campgrounds in Oregon. They keep bouncing around. And let me give you a good example. Las Vegas. Thousand Trails has a campground in Las Vegas, and it is not in the best part of town. Mm-hmm. And we can stay there for no nightly fee, right? And we have stayed there twice.
It's not Circus, is it?
What's that?
It's not Circus.
Is it sold at South Boulder Highway? Is that what it's called, South Boulder Highway?
I think so, yeah.
And there's another RV resort in Las Vegas called Oasis Las Vegas that is not part of the Thousand Trails network. And we stayed there for a month back in May 2017 when we just needed to hunker down for a month in one place to finish filming for our RV Success School that we launched that month. And we could have stayed in the Thousand Trails for free. We chose to pay to stay at the Oasis Las Vegas because it was a substantially nicer park. And that was worth it to us. And we did that on the trip on the way down to California. We stayed there one night to visit our friends, trying something new. Have you had those guys on the show? I think you might have once. Did you, Jimmy and Sandy? Trying something new. And we stopped to visit them, and we met them in Oasis Las Vegas in 2017. And then we paid $97 for one night to stay in that campground because, well, we just chose to, because the rest of our trip was going to be subsidized by paying no nightly fee.
That's the beauty of our industry. You can
go and choose.
Just as we say, you can buy anything from a pop-up to a $3 million newel.
Yep.
You can go camping in a tent, or $300 or $400 a night glamping tent, or park model RV. Disney was getting. I took my grandson there last month, and I think they were getting $450 a night for their park model rentals, which was more than some of their hotels on the property. But it depends on one.
It's what's important to you.
Out at Two Feathers in Deerfield, Mass. An interesting question. He says, many customers over time have asked, they do restorations. Many customers over time have asked us about Thousand Trails allowing vintage campers and buses. Do you know about any official word if they are allowed? Because many people own both new and vintage. Yeah. And it's got a good point. I mean, it's not unusual for somebody with a $3 million newel to also have a 1955 Airstream that they like to take out on other weekends. But has that topic come up when you're at any of the Thousand Trails, or do they publish it in any way about what's it?
Every campground has a terms and conditions and policies at the bottom, like every one. And I would recommend everybody read that specific to the park. So, for example, Portland Fairview RV Park. So, general rule, there is not an age restriction. A lot of campgrounds only 10 years or newer.
In general, we find that they don't have it. It's more on the condition of it than it is of the age of it. But there are a few campgrounds like Portland Fairview that are pretty strict on their 10-year rule. And
we went and we asked in the office about that. We said, why is it that you've got this rule and most of the other campgrounds don't? And that I don't know if they were just deflecting or if this is true. I mean, I have to take it on face value. That told us the truth, that it was actually a local county requirement related to their insurance, which I think is an interesting point, because I think that gets complicated, right? I guess if you've got an older rig, perhaps the risk of an electrical issue or a fire might be increased, and then that increase their risk and their liability. So I think that's a really gray area we're going to see more of across the board, not just Thousand Trails.
I think it's an especially gray area because there's so many people who make upgrades to their RVs and oftentimes to the electrical systems. When they add solar, they add lithium batteries, they add a lot of changes to the electrical system. So it's no longer even factory, and also these bus conversions. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff with that. And I've also, industry wise, I also think it's strange when people have those rules about age, because even high-end parks, because, a lot of Prevost buses, speaking of the high-end coaches, like the Newells and the Prevosts and some of these high-end coaches, they might look brand new, but they're 20 years old, 20, 30, 25 years
old.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, but the other side of that too is, and we know it because it's the RV industry, every once in a while they make a bad one.
Oh, yeah.
You can have a brand new RV pull in and have 3 or 4 problems. It could be their maiden voyage and have 3 or 4 problems. And the first stop is the campground store asking for the local technician to come fix their brand new coach.
Well, you remember our RV fire video where we bought that Winnebago for $1 and set it on fire for RV fire safety education? We did have the fire department involved, everyone, in case you think we're crazy. We did get local and state level fire. It's a great video. Go watch it. But we one of the reasons that we were inspired to make that video is because we knew multiple friends that had lost their RVs to fire, and homes for that matter, regular stick and brick homes. And one of those families lost a brand new, I'm not going to mention the brand, but it's a well-known and a popular brand, fifth wheel, brand new. They were just getting it ready.
Had just loaded their gear in it and hadn't taken it out
off yet. Thank goodness.
Burned down in their driveway.
Yeah, electrical issue, brand new RV.
So it can happen. It doesn't have to be old or new, but to answer that person's question, in general, we don't see issues with older coaches, but
it can be campground specific.
There's a few campgrounds that are.
Generally, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally the advice most people give is call the campground, because even if they have a 10-year rule, if you show them an Airstream that Jim Roy, a 1955 Airstream, I think it was the oldest one that he's restored, and you show them pictures of that, there isn't a campground in the country that's not going to allow it. So and common sense does come into play here once in a while too. Yeah.
So I would say generally in 1,000 Trails, I would say generally it's not an issue, and it is more of a condition. They don't want you coming in with, duct tape and tarps covering your windows and looking, and sometimes they'll just walk around and check it, and sometimes they don't.
Dante on his maiden trip to Florida this winter says he stayed at 6 different.
I'd like to know what your experience was, Dante, because they vary. Like we stayed at the Space Coast.
Did you join? One second, Dante. Did you join 1,000 Trails or Encore's program, or did you just
pay retail?
Pay retail because you happen to find it along the way.
So we stayed on the way down, and we just like to mix up our travels, period. And that's another misconception. I think people think, well, I have to stay in 1,000 Trails all the time, and no, you don't. And the most we ever stayed in was at 180 nights in 1 year.
But we have friends that stay over 350.
And mostly we stay on average maybe 90 nights a year. But that's enough to help subsidize the rest of our stays, whether we stay in state parks or national parks or motor coach resorts. We love staying in nice upscale resort. Camp Margaritaville that time. That was beautiful. It was lovely. And that's definitely a more expensive place. But to John's example earlier, the amenities there are fantastic.
Right, exactly.
So
you're not just paying for a campsite. And I want to remind people too that we're not sitting outside under our awning drinking cocktails at happy hour every day. When we're in a campground, we still work. Believe it or not, what we do is work. We're writing blogs and, creating social media and all kinds of things. So we're inside working a lot of the time. So what do we need? We need electric, we need water and a sewer hookup. And we're good. And we do what we do. And then when we finish work, we jump in the car and we go out and we explore the area. We drive around a national park. We'll get on our e-bikes and explore. We'll go out for dinner. So the money that we save just being parked, and because we're living, remember, when we're full-timers, we're living. We're not just there on a vacation for 2 weeks. Yep. And I think that's a really important point for people to keep in mind. If you're going to go out for 2 or 3 weeks of vacation a year and you want to be able to sit out there under your awning, and you want the environment to be, really conducive to that. And I would say there is one Encore Park, I'll tell you, in Florida. I'm going to say the name of it, 1,000 Trails Encore Park. We won't go back to that. Fort Lauderdale Sunshine Holiday. Sorry, I hope 1,000 Trails is listening. It's awful. You need to sort it out. It's terrible. It was really, we had like a sewer connection was on our patio, or you're squished up with people, and it was just horrible. But then we stayed at the Space Coast, and you're really close to Cocoa Beach and the Kennedy Space Center and all of that. Miami nice. We loved Miami. Everglades was great. Obviously the Keys. There's one in Winter Garden we really like. It's right across the road from Giant Recreation World. So, what we like about that, it's a bit of a tighter campground, but you're walking distance to everything, to grocery stores, to the restaurants, to the downtown. So the location and the proximity, we love it. I wouldn't say it's
a lot of
the
what we
best
rate a
campground,
campground by is how accessible it is to things outside of the campground as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Hey,
it's,
let me
you've got
ask
to
you
really
this
think about what's
question.
important to you and then read the reviews.
Where were you during COVID? Were you on the road in COVID, or were you already in a
We're in
house?
Portside,
We were on the road,
boondocking
when it
in
first,
our country coach.
Yeah, when the first lockdown happened, we happened to be boondocking near Quartzsite, Arizona, in our big coach that was very off-grid capable. So we actually just
Stay there.
right there.
Overstayed our 2-week limit. We're like, you know what? They got bigger problems to worry about.
Because during that time, we were doing some interviews with RVers that were on the road, because, the whole thing was you got to go home and stay home. Well,
Right.
There are people that can't go home because they don't have a home to go to.
It was tough for full-timers back
too.
then. Yeah, we did a lot of interviews around that. The media was very interested in that.
But there was a lot of, it was a couple of interviews we did with a couple that we found. Actually, I think I went on a Facebook page and said, if you're on the road, call me. So we got some people that way. But they were still, I think it was Thousand Trails. But, you could they could only stay for X amount of weeks before they had to move on to another place. And I know they had to get from Texas to Florida. And their big concern was they were going to get stopped on the highway entering Florida, as it turned out, because if they weren't going to make it into their property by a certain period of time. As it turned out, they did. But did you run into any of those things where you were stuck with nowhere to go during COVID?
We didn't, but we did hear of people that did. But one other note I wanted to make on what Thousand Trails did during that is I know there was one period where they actually, when the lockdowns were really strict, they actually let people stay in the park beyond what their normal reservation limit would have been.
But if you had a new reservation to come in, they weren't honoring those. They stopped new people coming in. And they said, if you're already here and you're allowed to stay, 14 or 21 nights, depending on your membership, what it allows you, they say, you can stay here. And
that was a tough
which was great if you were already in a Thousand Trails campground, because then you could stay longer. And I think that was a very difficult situation for everybody to navigate, campers and the companies and the campgrounds. Everyone's trying to make sense of it and figure out what's the best thing to do. So those that were in a park that were able to stay were very grateful. Those that weren't, let's say you were at a state park, well, a lot of those closed down, and then you're on the way to a Thousand Trails, well, your reservations got cancelled because they weren't letting new people in and they were letting the people already there stay. So those people would have been upset, understandably.
Yeah, it was a
it was difficult
to know what to do, but that was
the ones that were
industry-wide,
allowed.
because a lot of states actually blocked them down until they realized they are essential services for people who are full-timers. And so that's why what was good about that situation in the bigger picture is that it expanded the knowledge of the full-time lifestyle, and a lot of RV ports now are recommended.
It was
as
a page
essentials.
one story in the 1st of May in the New York Times. We were in that story. In that, they interviewed a bunch of us full-time RVers and talked about everyone's different experiences and what they did and how they handled it, which really did bring a lot of awareness. And then we found it was interesting because we did that media interview and several others. And then the story started to shift from, oh my goodness, where are all these people that have no home? Where are they going to go when you have to shelter in place? And we were in the desert, dressing up on Friday nights.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, they're talking about how RVs are
the only way
to
stay safe and get out there.
travel.
And then that's when RVing really took off.
Yeah. A lot of the state associations went to bat for the campgrounds because they were, in many states, they were closed. They were told they had to close, but they had them designated as essential workers and essential for people who are traveling nurses, firefighters, and the like. So it brought a lot of attention, which actually did make some very good improvements.
I think campgrounds that offer amenities like propane and a grocery store, those kind of things, it really helped with that as well.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Hey, let me ask you this question, Bob. We got some questions over here that I think we should go to in a minute. But let me ask you this: moving away from COVID, but in your normal travels in your last run that you were out there, did you ever run into, say you were in Park A and then you went to Park B, did you ever run into people from Park A at Park B that were?
That's actually one of the biggest side benefits that we did not expect from getting our membership with Thousand Trails, is that because people prefer to stay in the network campgrounds, you start seeing a lot of the same people over and over, and you start building relationships and friendships where whether
you move seasonally
and you're in the dog park, or you start seeing the same rigs, and you
made a lot of friends through that.
You see it a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you'd agree with me that one of the things about RVing is that when you're in a campground, you leave your corporate title behind. So, the reality is I would rather be parked next to a plumber, carpenter, or electrician than a bank vice president or a mathematician, because if something went wrong, right?
Which will.
Yeah.
Which will.
Well, yeah.
It will.
Funny story that our last trip to Florida, I had an
yeah.
issue with the plumbing system in the
at Fort Myers RV
waste
Resort.
tanks, and turns out the guy at the site next to me was a retired plumber, and he was just chomping at the bit to jump in to help me out with that project.
There you go.
Didn't even put on gloves.
It was a dirty job, but he jumped right in. It was kind of fun.
He was great. We gave him a book.
Right, so
He said, thanks,
my question to Dante, he says he went
through the Thousand Trails seminar.
Is that like an introductory thing where maybe they give you a discount and you listen to the sales pitch?
So did he buy a membership then? Like,
Can't tell.
I'd like to stay 30 days at a time and not move every 14 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Oasis is a beautiful park. It is a top-notch RV.
That's I assume you mean Oasis Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We also stayed at Oasis. It was a Thousand Trails. I always confuse the name. A Thousand Trails Oasis, or the Encore, the one in Palm Springs in Cathedral City. We stayed there.
Simple park,
very simple. It's just paved, but it's really much closer into Palm Springs, and we were there for no nightly fee. And interesting, they had reciprocal benefits with the adjoining country club, which is nothing to do with Thousand Trails. It was called Date Palms Country Club. We had to pay $20 like a security deposit. They gave us the key to go through the gate to get into the country club, which is a gated community. And it was lovely because we could just walk through there or bike. We could use the swimming pool or the gym. And then when we gave the $20, we gave the key back, we got our $20 back. And that was a great additional benefit that we weren't expecting. But I saw here that Charles has also mentioned that Morgan Hill, California is very strict on the condition of the rig. And I've heard a lot of reports about that. And Mark actually did that recent in-depth post where you saw a lot of reviews on that too. Morgan Hill. We haven't stayed there since they did that. But
that's not one of our favorite parks. It's convenient for LA area stuff, but it's not one of our favorites.
Jerry has an older.
Jerry's good here.
So I want to say Safari. Yeah, he's got a Safari motorhome. So
Jerry,
10-year-old.
Oh, it's not your Liberty.
No, he's Safari, and then he shows up. But then when you show up in the Safari, Jerry, they might still say,
"Oh, they probably don't even check it. They probably don't even look at that."
Yeah.
Now,
So I've seen some awesome 20-plus-year-old rigs and some S boxes that are 5 years old. It's very true. And so here is the problem. When I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but I think this is a really interesting conversation that, you've got this 10-year rule, and I understand why some parks are wanting to do it, because people with your higher end or nicer rigs don't want to be next to something with duct tape and, it's not an age thing, but even a quality rig, you can have a 20-year-old Prevost or a country coach or whatever, and then you'll have brand new, I don't want to mention a brand name and get people upset, but we all know poorly built one that, a year in is already starting to fall apart. And why is it like do you remember our first Tiffin motorhome, our 35-foot Tiffin Class A motorhome? Beautiful. Remember that one, the Class A, the brown one, brown and gold? That's 2012. That would not be allowed into a 10-year age rule resort now. And that's still a beautiful coach. And unless you knew those coaches intimately, you would think it's still new. It's full body paint, really well cared of.
Yeah. Let me answer Simon and Susan's question about how difficult it is to get a reservation. Depending on your membership, you can book out 60, 90, 180 days. But when we've traveled recently, we've actually been able to get last minute reservations a lot of times because people are canceling. They might have been booked out 3 weeks in advance, but then in the last week before we end up finding dates. We had that last year in
we're flexible,
Florida.
and we have a 25-foot rig.
Yeah.
So
if you have a bigger rig, the bigger the rig, the tougher it gets. And also it just not, if you're being too rigid, or Julie and I would say, hey, we need to find a campground somewhere in this 300-mile radius, and we'll find one, where someone else might say, I got to find one within this 30-mile radius, and they're going to have a tougher time. So,
and also just your date. So here's where I think a lot of people get stuck. Well, one is, we talked about this last week, Bob, like if you're looking for the popular campgrounds at the popular times of year, 1,000 trails or not, it's going to be harder to get into. Bob, already you said 2024, they're booking up and people are on a wait list. And so that just goes without saying. But just know that 1,000 Trails members, we move our memberships, our reservations around all the time. And because we don't have to pay the deposits like you do with regular campgrounds, and, calling, you can do a lot of it online. Sometimes you call.
Yeah, so
there are some you have to pay a deposit if you stay at one of the Encore Park. It's very easy, and you're not losing a lot of money like on a lot of other typical campground reservations that you move or change or cancel. Mm-hmm. But we booked our 1,000 Trails Palm Springs stay months in advance. At the beginning of my reservation, we know, because I don't want to be disappointed. We have because
we're booking
120
a day reservation too.
We booked 100. Yeah, we have 120 days ahead we can book. And we ended up with 4 weeks, because twice a year we can get an extra week for $29 total. So we stayed 4 weeks for $29 total.
Can't go wrong.
While you're on that, before we got about 8 minutes left.
Okay.
I've got a friend that's in 1,000 Trails.
Yeah.
And swears by it. But explain the process, and maybe it's only in one of the classifications or maybe zones, but he will often, when he comes to Florida, spend 2 weeks in this park, because he can spend 2 weeks, but then he has to get out of the park
for a week.
So he goes, and then he goes to another one.
Okay, he's got his own camping pass.
What is that? What is that process?
Or the Trails Collection.
Yeah, or the Trails Collection. So basically, the zone pass that Julie mentioned early in the call, and I'll try and be quick with this. The zone pass has the limitation that you can stay up to 2 weeks in a park before you have to be out for a week out of the network. If you have an upgraded membership, you can stay up to 3 weeks at a time and go straight into another one for 3 weeks, straight into another one for 3 weeks. No time out of the system. But if you have back to the zone pass, you could, in theory, go 4 days at a time and continually go 4 days, 4 days, 4 days, 4 days.
With no time out of the system.
But if you stay past that fourth day, then you can stay up to 2 weeks, then out for a week. And then the Trails Collection that Julie mentioned, that has those Encore parks, that has limitations of staying 2 weeks. Even if you have an upgraded membership, you can usually only stay for 2 weeks at a time in one of those. And you'd have to be out of that park, but not necessarily out of the network. So depending on your membership level.
I realize it sounds confusing. That's why we write really long articles.
I was trying to briefly.
Yeah. It'll cause people to pay more attention to it. They're making an investment, so they'll read the rules, because it's like anything else. It's got some great benefits, but if you don't,
I think that's where a lot of people get disappointed or upset, or they believe the negative comments. Is people just believe what they hear, or they just read what they want, and then they sign it without reading the rules, without reading the contract. Well, the sales guy didn't tell me that. You signed a contract. Read the contract. All the rules, they're all there. And people get upset about things like, but it's in this contract that you signed. So I think this is where campers, owners, RVs need to take responsibility for the choices that they're making and the investment that they're making. I mean, the thing is with the zone camping pass, like if you get them on sale, like we said, don't buy it full price. They're always on sale. They've always got a percentage or $1 discount. You probably get it for $500, $550, something like that. For a year, that's a no-brainer. You only have to stay for a week and anywhere, and it's paid for itself. And you might go in and say, you know what, it's really not for me. Well, guess what? You're not in a contract. You can cancel that. It's not a long-term contract.
That one would allow you to stay over 200 days in the network if you wanted to for $600 for a year.
And that's what we started with.
Depending on how you use it. So.
But every week that we were staying out of the network was costing us $200 to $300 for a week. And so there was the combination of the cost of that, plus we work. So it was getting tiring. So it was better for us as full-time RVers working from the road to stay in places longer. So, yeah.
Upgrades really start to pay off.
That's a really
section, like in every single blog post, you can leave comments, ask questions, and we're very happy to answer them. We check those all the time. I'm happy to help people, because it is complicated to navigate, but It
With
can
you
take
being
a
our
bit of
post,
time,
you'll
but
have
it'll
a
save
very
you a
good
lot of
understanding.
money. Yeah, it'll take time to wrap your head around it, but it can save you a lot of money. And it can be the difference between being able to afford to RV or not. And there's nothing sadder than someone who's got an RV sitting out there and they can't afford to take it anywhere because scared of the gas prices or scared of the campground prices. Well, you need to know these things before you buy your RV.
Yeah, and if you keep your campground
down,
it makes room for a lot more other expenses. So
you bring up an excellent point. Your friend Susan brought that up about last minute reservations, and I just always have to say I have to make this comment whenever the issue comes up about especially people saying, "Oh, there's all these new campers out there. There's no room at the campgrounds." Here's my theory. Even if you don't have a campground and it's 3:00 in the afternoon and you see a campground listed, call them anyway, because the website may say sold out, no availability, but they may have just gotten the cancellation 5 minutes ago from somebody
They don't update the website
who got stuck in traffic.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, I had that happen once on 4th of July up in northern Vermont, where it was a tourist area and there were 2 rigs. And I said, I know you're going to laugh at me, but did anything open up? She said, were you listening to my call? She said, I just got off the phone with somebody who canceled. She said, we haven't even put it back in the inventory yet.
Yeah.
So I said, we're 5 minutes away. She said, come on down.
All the time. All the time. And you're at a small rig too, John, little 25-foot Winnebago as well.
Right.
That is definitely easier. We've been to some campgrounds coming through Fredericksburg and they said, if you were in a bigger rig, we would have been able to accommodate you. But it's very rare campgrounds are 100% occupied because as everybody knows, you get a delay in traffic. You have a breakdown, a mechanical issue. You have a change of plans. We're changing stuff all the time.
And they hold a couple sites inventory back just to.
They always do anyway. It's just like a regular hotel. There's
exactly. And I do want to add, like that California trip we did, the long stays at the front end, we booked in advance. But then we were in Palm Springs for maybe 7 weeks or so. And we're going, we're getting ready to leave. We were getting itchy feet. And then we decided to go up the coast. That was not in the plan. And they're the popular campgrounds up the coast. And a lot of the campgrounds were closed because of the storms, but they were starting to reopen. And we got some reservations all booked, I would say, no more than 10 days
less than
out,
a week,
or less than a week to 10 days out. And we got a stay at Pacific Dunes. We got the stay at Marina Dunes, which is in Monterey, which is really beautiful. And it is
lovely park,
beautiful park. That was $20 a night. And we were like 30 minutes from Big Sur.
Normally 100 plus a night.
So, and that was an example of a great, I would call it a pretty last minute reservation.
Yeah. Zagami, I can't believe that our time with the Love folks.
I know.
Love talking to you.
Is over.
Thankfully, Dawn put this note on. Thank you, Dawn. Another great show. Thank you. I will ask that you get some time tomorrow. Just run through. We got a lot of comments tonight that we couldn't get to. So if you get a chance tomorrow to look at the comments and maybe answer those individually, they would be questions. So thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you for having us, guys. It's always fun to catch up with you.
I'll give Brian one last question. What is the average distance you like to travel between stops? I know I drive like a truck driver and not for leisure. What's your rule?
It often depends, but we generally will drive less than 300 miles in a day.
Yep.
Yep. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Always fun seeing you guys.
I'll come back and thank you. In case anybody missed it, I'll let you handle this one, John.
In case you missed it, folks, keep in mind that Mr. Zagami, Mr. DePietro, and the Marc and Julie are part of the best podcasts for RVers and campers. And
that was her podcast. And in her podcast,
I know that, but I'm including them in it as well.
Because we appear on your podcasts.
We're guests on a lot of those podcasts, not all of them, but some of them we've had
we've guests on a lot of them. Yeah.
Right.
Our 2 shows, the Camp Report and RV in New England. Thank you for putting them on there. Have a great night. We'll catch up to everybody down the road.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, guys, always a
I'm going to
pleasure.
send you an email right now and ask for your address.
Okay.
We'll get this out tomorrow.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining.
This edition of RVing in New England was a presentation of the New England RV Dealers Association. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.